Okay, so here we go. This is what we're going to talk about today. Cognitive distortions. We're going to look at the different distortions and we're going to see how we can identify and hopefully, we can change those distortions into something more helpful. So stay with me and we'll be right back. When it comes to making changes in your life, you're the expert. You are in the driver's seat. Everything else is just a guide. Welcome to InJoyness podcast, your guide to wellness, recovery, and change. I'm your host, Dela, and thank you for joining me on this episode. So why is this important? Well, because when we think a certain way, we feel a certain way, and therefore we act a certain way. And so our thoughts impact our feelings, which impact next what we do or what we say, some sort of behavior. And so if those thoughts start off unhelpful, then there's this vicious cycle and it always continues. So that's why this is important. So what we're going to look at is how we can recognize these unhelpful thoughts in an effort to change this vicious cycle. And so if you come along with me, you can probably identify some of these distortions yourself. We all have them. I think the point of this sort of talk is not to judge ourselves. It's more to become aware. It's always about self-awareness. So this activity that we're going to do is going to have different parts. So we're going to look at the most common cognitive distortions, and then we're going to look at alternative ways of thinking so that we can actually do something about it. Because what's the point if we're not going to do anything about it? All right, so the most common cognitive distortions, there are a few of them, but we're going to start with all or nothing thinking. That's it, all or nothing. So think of it this way. So you believe that everything is black or white. Everything is either good or bad. Everything is either sad or happy, and there's nothing in between. And so this is very limiting, wouldn't you say? Think of the last time you may have had this sort of thinking pattern. So for a more, let's say, helpful middle ground, we can perhaps change that sort of thinking into, well, maybe there are more than two options here. How else can I think about this situation? Maybe there's another way of looking at it. So that's all or nothing thinking. So an example would be either I go to the gym every single day or I don't go at all, right? Either I am on a total healthy eating habit or I might as well just eat junk all day. So those are all or nothing thinking. And so if you think about it, you'll realize that nothing really good happens. Like no good results ever come out of this sort of all or nothing thinking pattern. So that's number one. The next one that we're going to look at is which is another common cognitive distortion, is filtering. And we do that a lot, folks. We do that a lot. If you pay attention, you probably pick it up throughout your day, how we filter our own thoughts. So it looks like this. So you look at your day and you go, oh, I didn't do I didn't do anything good at all today. I didn't do anything positive. I didn't do anything productive at all today. Meanwhile, you may have vacuumed your whole house. You may have done some laundry. You may have answered some emails. You may have read some pages in the book. You may have cleaned the closet. But you forget all the positives you've done, and all you think about is that negative. Maybe you had set out to do groceries that day and you never got to it. And all you think about is, I didn't do what I thought I would do. But instead you think about, you don't, and you don't even think about everything positive you've done your entire day. That's filtering. So basically you're focusing on the negative and ignoring the positives. So maybe we can change this around by looking at it in a different way. Maybe you can ask yourself, let me think about my day. What did I actually do that was positive? Let me look at it in a more balanced way. Let me not just look at what I didn't do, what didn't go right. Oh, this week was just a write-off. Why? Well, I didn't get to the gym at all. Well, okay, let's look at what you did do. Well, I took my dog on a walk like twice a day. Yeah, I went up and down the stairs a few times a day because my bedroom is upstairs and I had to make that flight up several times that day. I also had to clean the yard. Well, let me think. I did mow the lawn this week. Oh, yeah. I also washed the windows. So, yeah, you're right. I guess I did do a lot of positives. Okay, I didn't make it to the gym, but I did do all these other positive things. So consider that. All right, the next one is personalizing. Now, I don't know about you, but I've done this a lot in the past. Okay, now I'm a little more self-conscious, a little bit more self-aware about this, so I pay attention. It's called personalizing. So constantly blaming yourself for anything that goes wrong, even if it has nothing to do with you, you personalize it. You think it's your fault. Someone leaves the room. Oh, I must have said something. Got them mad. And maybe not, right? Maybe not. So look at all the possibilities. Is this really about me? Okay. And sometimes we think the world revolves around us. No. Got news for you. Everyone is the center of their own universe. So maybe this is not really about me. Maybe there's another explanation out there that might explain the situation better. Okay, so that's personalizing. Another one, this is a good one. This one is called mind reading. And so, once you start that, then you make all those stories, those horrible stories we tell ourselves about. We see something, we make up a story, assuming that we know what everybody else thinks, right? Of course, we're mind readers. Oh, yeah. Did you see how she looked at me? Oh my gosh, she must think I'm the worst person in the world. Did you see how she walked out? Yeah. We think we know what everybody thinks. No, we don't. So maybe questioning our assumptions about this, right? How do I know what others are thinking? Really, what evidence is there? What evidence do I have that this person is thinking exactly this? So we're not mind readers. So catching ourselves in that moment when we start telling ourselves those stories might help. This next one is really common too. something that's called catastrophizing. Now, this is imagining the worst possible outcome. Like disastrous consequences are always in the corner. Yeah, you know what I mean. Have you ever been late to an appointment? Like, let's say you were late to a doctor's appointment, right? Oh my God, I'm going to be late. They're going to think the worst of me. They're never going to want to be my doctor. They're going to charge me a bunch of money. They're never going to give me another appointment. I'm going to get sick and I won't have a doctor. Then I'm going to have cancer. Then I'm going to die. I'm exaggerating here, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So like, how about looking for a more realistic perspective? Honestly, what is the evidence this is going to happen? And this catastrophe, is it going to happen in a matter of 1 month time? Like, as in right away? Is this an immediate event that is going to happen? Because a lot of times we worry so much about something that hasn't happened, like that might be in the future, might be or might not be. We're so anxious about it. We have that habit of catastrophizing, thinking of the worst ever situation. And I have news for you. Okay, so it doesn't happen. Most of the time, it doesn't happen. It's possible, highly unlikely. We have been worrying about stuff that has not happened in the past. Do you agree? I know it's true for me. The next one is overgeneralizing. And I mean, yeah, this is a common one too, right? So we reach a conclusion about one event and then we think it's going to happen in every single case. So you may have a little car accident, and then you think that every time you get in the car, you're going to have a car accident. You do poorly on one test, and then you keep saying to yourself, I'm just not good at tests. You cook something and it doesn't turn out, and you say to yourself, I'm just not a good cook. Some of us use that as an excuse. Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just lousy at this, right? So think about the last time you overgeneralized something. And so a more helpful way of thinking could be, well, let me be more specific. Okay, is it true that this is always the case? Is it true that I'm always a bad cook? Is it true that I always get into accidents? Is it true that I'm always failing tests, for example? And then if I say yes to that, then what are the facts? Really? Seriously? Because I can assure you there's always an exception. So then if there's always an exception, then it cannot be true all the time. Right? And then, do I have facts? And then I don't have facts. Then what am I interpreting? Why am I looking at it this way? Another opportunity to reflect. So another distortion is emotional reasoning. And it's a source for trouble in general, I think. Emotional reasoning is when we believe something is true just because we feel it is. So you believe your neighbor is a jackass because maybe you saw him swear one day. Maybe you saw him yell at his dog one day, or maybe he didn't say hi to you one day. So you let that feeling dictate what you believe is true. So then again, to counteract this, you have to become a little more self-aware and ask for yourself if there's an evidence for this belief? Am I confusing my feelings with the facts? Is my perspective correct? Can I look at this from a different perspective, from a different angle, from a different lens? And often we do find other perspective. Now you might come and say, well, then that would mean I have to ignore my intuition. No, not necessarily. I think those are two different aspects. I think your intuition is more of a gut feeling and not an interpretation of something that you feel. So, well, that's a little blurry, isn't it? I have to think about that a little bit more. So, if I have a gut feeling about something, trust my intuition. My intuition says, don't do this or do this. This is a person you can trust. This is a person you cannot trust. I think I might still have to look for evidence, right? We don't often make decisions just based on those. Or do you? Maybe you'll let me know in the comments how you make those decisions. Or do you feel like these two areas are kind of blurry? Or do you think, no, Dela, you're totally wrong. These are two different topics and one has nothing to do with the other. Anyways, let me know what you think. The next one is labeling. And we do this a lot to ourselves and to a lot of other people, becoming, more aware, because by labeling ourselves or other people, we get stuck in these judgments. And so judgment of ourselves or judgment of other people. And it really, I would say, blinds us. And it kind of prevents us from making more clear deductions. Let's say you keep calling yourself a failure for some reason or other. So you choose a characteristic and you label yourself with that characteristic. You go through life saying, I'm a failure. Or I've heard this a lot, I'm an idiot. You keep saying that, I'm an idiot. And you start believing those, right? You become judgmental towards yourself. Or you see someone and you say, they're just a drunk. Forget them, they're just a drunk. Not remembering that there are other qualities to look at too. We can't just take one label and reduce that person to that one single characteristic. So asking ourselves, what other qualities do I have that allows us to shift that judgment to curiosity? Because that's what we want to be, curious, not judgmental. And perhaps that would allow us to say, okay, so what might be causing this person's action? I heard a saying the other day, which was really, really good. Someone said, you would do the same thing if you were them. That's what I heard. You would do the same thing if you were them. Meaning, you don't know what this person is living. You have to walk in their shoes for a mile before deciding who they are, why they are the way they are, why they act the way they act. So really reducing that person to just one single characteristic, like a drunk, is not fair to them. And so being more curious about their other characteristic, what other qualities do they have? Maybe they have a lot of qualities that we don't know of. The last, cognitive distortion, that's really common, is should statements. This looks like when you say to yourself, I should have done this, or I should have done that. You shouldn't do this, you should do this. when you keep shoulding yourself, that is also a cognitive distortion. This is often based on these rules, right, that we've learned, let's say in our families or in our society, in our background, these rules that tells us that you should do it this way, you should do it that way. So to change that, and it takes practice because we are so used to saying, I should do this, I should have done that, I shouldn't have done that. I catch myself all the time changing the rules, rewriting those rules, and saying to myself, I could do this. I could have done this. Changing the should to could. I could do this, or you could do this. You could try this. You could try it this way. I could try it this way. Here's the thing with this one, is that, there's no way that we're going to go through life not making mistakes. No way. If I stop making mistakes, that means I'm not learning anymore. Truly believe that. So how about saying, well, next time I could do it this way. It's because I learned that what I did before didn't work, so I could try it this way. So those are some cognitive distortions or stinking thinking that a lot of people live with. I used to live, and still live with some of these distortions. It's a work in progress. The point is to be aware of them and catch ourselves and see how we can learn a better and more productive way, steering from unhelpful to something more helpful, more productive, more conducive to living better and in harmony and in peace. If I'm going to leave you with some reflection question, what cognitive distortions do you tend to use? So what are some of these things where you said, oh yeah, I do that. Okay. And then maybe think about what alternative thoughts would be more helpful to you. What would help you shift towards believing those alternative thoughts? Because remember, we do the same thing over and over again, and they become a habit, and then habits become us. So if we can first recognize them and then do something about it, we can start changing those habits into more helpful habits. The 3 A's are accept that you need help. The second A is ask for help. Maybe listening to this podcast is how you've asked for help. And act. Act on something you've learned. So if you learned something today, act on it, do something, take a step. And let me know what you've done so that we can all learn from one another. Thank you for listening to this episode of InJoyness podcast, a guide in your journey to wellness, recovery, and change. In gratitude and love, I'm your host, Dela.